Hello, John McConnon here, winnerscheck.org. I'm a real estate attorney and a broker, and this might be a great module to start at. It's not module one, because there's already some things, just basic due diligence that a seller's agent is going to want to do before they start marketing the property so they can market it properly. But we're going to already assume that you've done that and you've reviewed our prior module, you've joined our community, you've considered all these things so that you are a solar home expert. But these are some prior considerations you should consider ahead of time. Now, let me just click through because otherwise this is going to get long. Now, we're now assuming that the seller's priority is first to see if they can get a buyer who can qualify for that loan or for the lease or the power production agreement. So you're not just taking any buyer. You want to make sure this buyer is already stronger than a buyer who would qualify for a property at this price. They need to have extra down payment money or extra purchasing power. If you're going to get this done, I would say in most scenarios. And the reason for another reason for this is you could also make this agreement say buyer will use their due diligence, but if not, the buyer agrees to carry back a second. So now, of course, the solar home expert in you is saying, well, I better work with lenders in my area to know that this is even possible and set up the timing because I don't want to surprise the lender with a new second at the very end. And you want to work, and you also don't want to run afoul of RESPA requirements. So you want to make sure you do all this properly. So that's the setup that you're going to do for your first transactions. And you're probably going to want to check on this every once in a while, especially when your transaction is going to be a little bit different than the prior one, or if you haven't done one in a while. Because setting this up properly ahead of time can make a huge difference. So again, I'm just saying, well, I've already clicked through. So now, when setting up your disclosures in this model that your broker is going to approve and that maybe your broker is even going to run by an attorney, you're going to have seller duties. Now, I would consider some of these duties. Seller should deliver to buyer all documents in their possession related to the lease or loan or the PPA. I'm not going to keep saying PPA. And they're going to, deliver the information related to the solar equipment, such as warranties and all the other, even maintenance, whatever those documents are, and you have the seller is going to deliver those or copies of them within business. I would say 1 or 2 business days after execution of the contract or whatever in your state. How, you might say from the date the contract signed, whatever the normal language is in your state referring to an executed contract. I'd mirror that language and say the seller has a duty to deliver this within 2 business days. Now, ideally, I think the best practice is the seller and the agent have already gotten all these documents and the information, and they've got a package of it, and they just email the PDF over, and they make sure that the buyer's agent got it. You could even do that, if you're comfortable with it, before the contract's even signed, just so the buyers know what's going on and they're comfortable. And if you make a nice little presentation of it, you could actually probably increase the value of the property, or help the seller increase the value of the property. Now, I would also consider delivering the contact information where the buyers are going to have to go to start working on the assumption. So, it might be, whatever. It'd be your lender. It would be your lease people or your PPA people. And I would have called ahead of time to know. I would have gotten all the documents in the process down ahead of time. So I can also include that in my disclosure information. So now that's going to trigger, well, first of all, I'll have additional duties to consider for the seller. I would consider delivering my power bills that I had before and after getting the solar. And I would explain that electricity rates may have even gone up by then. I would talk about the fact that, therefore, this solar arrangement should be good for buyers, but all buyers are different, might have different usages. And so I would have the caveats in there, but I'd also explain if it seemed like a really good deal, I'd explain why it was a good deal, but I'd include the caveats. I would also I would definitely say it actually, that sellers not guaranteeing future performance of the equipment or giving any type, this is probably say any type, of warranty, TYPE, of warranty regarding future production or operational life of the equipment. I would say that you're saying you're providing the information to the buyers, and the buyers should exercise their due diligence and go over the paperwork with their advisors, or you might want to use an attorney if you're not afraid to scare them away or you think it's appropriate. Now, overall, here's the whole point. You're making these disclosures and giving out good information, but you're really, again, I can't stress enough, you're not guaranteeing any future performance of the solar on the roof or the quality of the equipment or anything like that. You say you refer them to the third parties. You might even want to disclose. Let's see if I have this in here. Yeah, here's some liabilities to consider. Buyer's duties to investigate the condition and suitability of the system for buyer's goals and expectations. Output production guarantees. Payment schedules. I mean, hopefully you don't have a balloon payment, but things like that could be important if payment, especially if they change or they adjust based on interest rates. You might want to talk about the risks of ownership. Change of billing rates we talked about. The solar vendors going out of business. So let's say some of your warranties come from the people who installed the solar. That's a risk. So if you're pushing the fact that you've got a 20-year warranty on the equipment, you might say there's a risk that the equipment company could go out of business or the installer could go out of business. So you see what you're disclosing. You probably want to match up the fact that it's not you doing this, it's them. I don't know, climate change. It could get cloudier. I know I recently installed solar on my roof, and I noticed when it's cloudy, my production goes down dramatically. So a long period of unexpected cloudiness could be a problem. I would disclose it. Why not, right? It's obvious, but why not? Just to avoid future problems. And this last one, I'm not so sure about. You may want to include the fact that earthquakes and hurricanes can damage equipment, but that might be obvious too. Now, buyer's duties. Let's see if I got any more water in here. Sorry. That was a water mug. Oh, I got some iced tea here. All right. Within 2 business days of receipt of contact information, buyer shall begin qualifying for the loan or the lease and shall cooperate fully with the lender or lessor or PPA people, and they shall supply the necessary documentation for, you don't even worry about what it says here. Necessary documentation. Let's just delete that. You might wish to say, their duty, they have a duty to a strong due diligence duty to comply. You might want to mirror the language that your state uses for buyers who have said that they're buying the property contingent on financing. Use that language here, because especially with a second loan like a solar can be, that language might be very apropos. And if not, you might want to slightly customize it for the lease or the PPA. Now, there's also the inspections. I would tell them that they should inspect the equipment and to find that it's suitable and to their satisfaction. And I would mirror the language that your state uses for inspecting the property, and probably even the timeframes and the same triggers in eventualities. I would mirror that. But if not, we could develop model language that would be similar to this. Or buyer shall, X days prior to the close of escrow, give notice of buyer's inability to qualify for the assumption. And we might be more specific about the assumption. Use the exact language you used earlier. And non-issuance of such a notice, this X day notice beforehand, shall be buyer's consent to moving forward with closing. So in other words, if your state allows a buyer to forfeit their money if they've already released all their contingencies, then you want to have that provision triggered properly. You want to mirror that language to move into all those caveats. Like, there are issues that can come up. Let's say a buyer could have qualified with their due diligence but chose not to, or they did qualify but they're still trying to get out. You need to incorporate that type of situation into your contracts. Now, luckily, almost every contract that I've ever witnessed in other states, and I have witnessed in many other states, they're usually pretty well written on that regard because they get battle tested over time. So you're looking to mirror that language as closely as possible. So this is, now we're moving into the buyer failure to qualify. For simplicity's sake, I would mirror it. We have not discussed all the issues. As I said, all of this should be approved by your broker, who may wish to have a local real estate attorney. Over time, I would expect your states to have solar home disclosures, but they might not already, and that's why we're building model disclosures. And as if, in our webinars, if you want to discuss your favorite position, your favorite paragraphs or disclosures, send them to me. We will add them to our model disclosures that we have in our community, and we should have a really good database to draw from. But again, unless you're an attorney, sorry, this is growing and it's itching me. Unless you are an attorney, I would definitely run this by your broker at a minimum, but maybe a local attorney. So that should be it. Yeah, for this section, that should be it. There are further modules after this, and there were modules before this. But hopefully this gives you an idea of what you should be doing to be a solar home expert to help sellers and help buyers. I mean, just think everybody, all the buyers should now, if you're qualified to help them review all this stuff, they should see, a home with solar on it, if the lease or the loan is at reasonable rates, as a benefit. And it's just a question of who gets that benefit. Are they going to pay for it? Or are they going to negotiate it slightly in their favor? But at least you can help them quantify and qualify it. And the sellers, I think that as a seller's agent, there's so much you can do to benefit sellers just because you've considered these things or you've gone through our other training as part of our Solar Home Expert module. But thank you for listening. Send me your questions. I look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks.